because beyond the whole campaigning on the floor, a lot of things are really supposed to be data driven, especially in the dispensation we find ourselves. So from what I know, each of the parties have very strong research decks that are looking also at their numbers, and that is also determining where they go to at particular times. I was sharing this, I think in the newsroom, that some time back, that even if you notice the key personalities in certain regions, in certain parties, it's not every region they have necessarily been to, neither is it every constituency. And whenever they go to a region, there are particular constituencies that they go to. Yeah, so I'm talking about taking aside the presidential candidates who have to go everywhere. But when it comes to key members in the party, you realize that their campaigning is a lot of more targeted. It's a bit more targeted. So if they enter, say, Greater Accra, there are certain particular
key constituencies they go to.
And this is because of the way everybody is looking at numbers. So as you asked, it's a lot of numbers, and even me, if I'm doing this, I'm imagining what the political parties
what they would be doing. Okay, so road to 50+1. One thing about our elections is that some regions are crucial, that you need to have them in the bag if you are going to cross the 50+1. Let's start with those regions. First of all, which regions are those?
Okay, so before I get there, in the 2020 election, we went to the polls with just about 17 million voters. We are going to this election with about 18.7 million voters in the voters register. I know tomorrow we have a special tomorrow, so I will not go into details. But tomorrow we'll tell you why even that 18.7 figure is a bit overly stated, and then we'll move to other things. So let's just leave that. That's a teaser for people to look out for, because that is what will actually tell you what indeed should be the target of 50+1. But historically, what has happened is that there's been 3 regions prior to 2020 that have always moved in the direction of the presidential results. The first region is the Greater Accra region. The second region is the Central region. And then the third region being the Western region. Now, this had been the trend from somewhere 2000 up until 2016. And then suddenly in 2020, the Greater Accra region fell off. So for the first time in Ghana's electoral cycle, a candidate won the Greater Accra region, but did not win the overall result.
And this one has to be the NDC.
The NDC winning the Greater Accra region by about 40,000 in 2020, but failing to win the presidential.
I think 40,000. Yeah.
I mean the 40,000 gap.
In my mind, I was looking at the percentages because the losing candidate usually has been in the 46% margin, but in 2020, Nana Akufo-Addo did 48. Compared to what has been the normal trend.
Exactly. So that is also another thing we need to look out for. So generally, as we speak, it is the Central region and the Western region which could be characterized as your swing now.
At the moment.
Now, the Central region, the Western region also provides a very dynamic picture. In that, in 2016, after the NPP won the election, that region was split into the Western and the Western North. Now, if you study the trend, what you realize is that the NDC has always done better in the northern part of the Western region.
So the Western North.
Yes, so the Western North. While the NPP is very strong actually on the coastal sides, which is the Western region. So by splitting the region, what it therefore meant was that there was more like a nullification of the effects of the northern part of the area into the entire Western region results. And so in 2020, the NPP actually won the Western region by a very, very significant margin. I'm trying to just get the figures for you, and then we have a wonderful conversation on it. So if you move for the trend analysis for the Western region in 2024. So in 2020, Nana Akufo-Addo won by 51%, as opposed to John Mahamed's 46% in that region.
That's 2020.
That is 2020. Now, this
is after the division, right?
This is after the division. What makes it interesting is that this region looks like one that could potentially also determine where this election will go.
Okay.
So it's a region you should look out for.
The Western
region. Because in 2020, Nana Akufo-Addo had 439,000, and John Dramani Mahama had about 398,000. So in effect, it was also a gap of about 40,000.
The margin was close.
Yes.
And, well, this is also very interesting because the Western region has been in the news recently after the president visited the inauguration of the statue in his honor for what the Western regional minister says unprecedented level of infrastructural development under the president's watch. And then again, you have an instance where a queen mother meets the former president, flag bearer of the NDC, and weeps literally about underdevelopment of the region.
I think the Western region is a very serious, and that's why I'm picking on the Western because it's a very critical region. In fact, sometimes when you are doing this analysis, call a speed a speed. Anybody that has been to the Western region in recent times will tell you about how, although that region and the Western North provide so much to the countries,
they have little to show for it.
They have little to show for it in terms of food. I think it's one of the. I was telling someone that I was in the Western region about 2 months ago, and when you get to Western region proper, up until you get close to the Elembele constituency, the routes are very terrible. So right in Takrade to Efia to Ahanta West, the routes in there are terrible, and these are issues that are very critical. And the reason why I said the Western is also important is that if you decide to strip the 2016 election results, so you want to separate the regions into Western, North. In 2016, Nana Akufo-Addo in those regions had 384,000, as opposed to John Dramani Mahama's 285,000.
This is 2016.
This
was when the general wind of change was blowing. Okay.
So Nana Akufo-Addo or candidate Akufo-Addo in 2016 compared to John Mahama had 100,000 voter gap
for Western region.
For Western region, that's when you strip the Western from the Western North.
That was when the split had not occurred.
Yes,
right?
but then if you decide to strip,
that was the margin.
That was the margin in those constituencies that make up the Western.
It was over 100,000.
No, it was close to 100,000.
And it reduced to 40,000.
Yeah, to 40,000. It's been halved.
Well, that's quite a number.
That's quite a number.
Then it means it may be, depending on how things go, it may be easy for the opponent to cross that margin.
And that is why that region is also crucial.
Okay.
So any analysis you do, you have to factor in the Western region, because if you look at the margin that candidate Akufo-Addo did in 2016, the Western region, the Central region, and Greater Accra region consolidated his gains in the Ashanti region for that 2016 election, for him to win the election.
Then it gives you an idea of a level of discontent.
Possibly.
Just as it was in 2016 when we saw the margin in terms of the voters, not just even in the Western region, but on the national level.
Exactly.
It gave you the level of discontent of the people to the governance.
Okay, yeah.
I see.
So
interesting.
Very interesting there. So as I said, in 2016, President candidate Akufo-Addo did 1 million gap, and I've showed you the areas I give you. So there's the Ashanti region that will typically give you your 1 million. In fact, maybe tomorrow morning I'll come and then we'll delve deeper into the Ashanti region.
Sure.
And then for us to know how beyond the MPP's cry that they need to consolidate the Ashanti region, I still believe they need to win at least Central or Western region. Otherwise, they still will not win the election. And I'll look at those numbers.
Because there has been a very extensive focus on the Ashanti region, to the point where was it tribal sentiments being whipped up more like
so they want whipping
core
up
base.
The core base that this is our party. But I said I'll do that tomorrow morning, where I'll delve into the Ashanti region and give you some interesting figures there.
Yeah.
So I've told you about the Western region. So that's what I'm saying, that the Western region is crucial, because in 2016 candidate Akufo-Addo had a 1 million gap. In 2020 that gap reduced to 50,000. So 500,000. Now, just look at this. In 2016, the Western region's gap was 100,000.
Close to 100,000. And then 2020
it
comes
goes
to
about 40,000. Now, the Western region has that kind of life that mimics the national election.
Okay.
So, as I said, if the NPP or the NDC, which is the opposition, can be able to make a turnaround in that Western region, they can confidently say, okay, the Western region, it looks like something that region that will mimic.
In fact, in the prediction of Global Info Analytics, they say that the Western region would go to the NDC.
And that will be big. That will be big. That's why I said tomorrow, beyond the Ashanti.
But IB disagrees.
I think it will, personally, I think it will be close.
It will be close.
I don't think anybody who wins that region will win by, say, 100,000 margin. However, if the NDC does flip, not even about win, if the NDC flips the Western region, they are home and dry. For the NDC, it's not about the gap in the Western region. It's about flipping the Western region. If they flip the Western region.
And flipping the Western region means having it in their
yes. So if the NDC gets
favor.
50.03, 50.05, 51% in the Western region, they are home and dry because the Western region equally is crucial. That means that the NPP is losing another 40,000 votes in there. And that 4,000 votes is being transferred. Yeah. So when voting for one party reduces, there are two things that happen. It is either there are people who voted for you and are sitting on the fence, or there are people that voted for you and are voting the other way.
Yeah.
Now, any vote that goes the other way, it's more like a double because you lose one and I gain one. So if 40 people decide move from you and come and vote for me, it automatically means that I now lead you with 40.
Yeah.
And your net is actually 80. However, if 40 just stay home, you have just lost 40 without me gaining.
Yeah.
So your net is 40. So that's what I'm saying, that if the NDC just flips it means that the NDC has actually had like a minus 80,000 of whatever the NPP got in 2020, thereby reducing their 500,000 gap to nearly 400,000 without doing too much. So that is why the Western region is very important. Now, I'll touch next on the Central region. A second, please, Mary. Okay. So the Central region is also a very crucial one because, as I've told you, the Central region has mimicked the national. And the Central is so interesting because there's swing and then there's swing.
There's swing and there's
swing. Like, so there's swing that is marginal.
And this one is
the Central region can swing like 0 to 100.
Yeah.
That is how the Central region.
It's like a 360.
Yes. The Central region is just like you have just thrown something and just coming back at you. It can go anywhere at any time. And that is why it's a very, very interesting region. In fact, I'll try and then get you some numbers from the Central region for you to understand further how great the swing in a region like the Central region can be. And then I'll do it quickly. So in 2012, right, candidate Mahama did 52%. Candidate Akufo-Addo did 45%. In 2016, candidate Akufo-Addo did 53%. And Mahama did 43%. So within 4 years, Mahama lost 10% of his votes.
Between
2012 and 2016, 10%.
It just went.
It just went. In fact, between 2012 and 2016, Mahama's votes fell by 120,000. So this
in the Central
region,
120,000 between 2012
yes,
and 2016, 4 years.
4 years. It fell by 120,000.
The Central region was very disenchanted.
Yes.
They were very unhappy about something.
Exactly. And then, ironically,
in 2020,
he moved up to 524,000. But then, the candidate Akufo-Addo equally moved up.
Okay.
So what also could have happened in the Central region, which people might not have alluded their minds to, was that
skirt and blouse.
Apathy. Yeah.
Okay. They just
didn't vote. They just were so angry with him and they didn't vote. But then within that period, that's what the data is for. Because within that period,
but they increased their numbers in terms of parliament in the Central region
in 2016.
In 2020.
Yes. So I'm not coming to 2020.
Okay.
So between 2012 and 2020, candidate Akufo-Addo jumped from 450,000 to 602,000. So he gained 150,000 votes. Candidate Mahama moved from 524,000 in 2012, dipped and came back to his 524,000 in 2020.
So 524,000 in
In
2012.
2012, he
did.
fell to 405,000.
And then he
regained
regained.
back to his 524,000.
So,
So, so the central region is also critical because what it looks like is that the central region might not actually vote the other way. They'll just sit at home.
they might just not.
They might just not vote.
Yeah.
So, what the candidates, what the NDC will be hoping is that at least candidate John Dramani Mahama can consolidate or even keep his 524,000 or even move up to say 550,000 and pray that the NPP 600,000 will fall. It's the central region's dynamic is actually very different.
It defies.
Yes, it
the
defies
trend.
trends.
Yes, if you are to go and think that it follows a particular trend, it will surprise you.
Because it's not about you gaining votes. It's just about, okay, people just didn't come for you. Yeah. Because ironically, in 2016, that's President Akufo-Addo won. One would have expected that if John Dramani Mohammed's votes fell, candidate Akufo-Addo's vote would have shot up.
Appreciated.
It's just appreciated by just about 50,000, despite the 120,000 for John Mahama
In 2016.
in 2016. So that's why I was explaining to you that when people decide not to vote, there are two things you look out for. Is the person sitting at home or the person is moving to the other side?
Yes.
And it's more dangerous when the person is moving to the other side.
Okay.
And that is what the Western region looks like. They tend to do. But with the Central region, they just don't care about US at home. Yeah. So
Are they like a bigger version of Leje Kuku?
Possibly. And Lejuku is also another game on its own. In fact. Yeah. So that's with the Central region.
Yes.
Finally, I'll end with Accra because before this year, Accra used to be a swing. Before 2020, Accra used to be a swing. The data suggests that Accra is looking less of a swing moving forward.
Okay.
Yes. However, it is important.
It's moving, and so which side is it aligning with more?
It's aligning more towards the NDC.
Okay, so it's more green.
Yes, Accra is turning more green.
Okay.
In fact, it's anticipated that the NDC would actually better the 40,000 gap it did in 2020. The question one will ask is, how wide would the gap be?
How wide would the gap be?
Because the Central region's owners, people sitting at home. Greater Accra swing is people switching to the other side.
Yeah.
So if there's a large switch in Accra, and the NDC does the unthinkable in Western region, and then flips it to get maybe an 80,000 there, and increases their margin from 40,000 to 200 or 250,000 in Accra, they have close to 300,000 added to their old votes that they are working with in terms of the margin.
But the argument is that you cannot rely on your old votes. You cannot think that, I have this core base. Even though you have that core base, there will be people who will be in and out. So you cannot necessarily say that this particular number is waiting for you, but you just have to add on.
Well, that could be true. And that's why with the Central region, I've given you an example.
Yeah.
The Mahama did 524 in 2012, fell to 4 something, and came back to 524. So you can use this analysis to say that for the Central region, the NDC has at least a core base of 520,000, which in 2016 moved a certain way because they were probably disgruntled or pure apathy. So if you look at those numbers, you can make an analysis and determine what, for example, would be the core base for the NDC, say in the Greater Accra region.
Interesting. I wish we could do more numbers, but clearly time is not our ally. It's 10 a.m. now, and so tomorrow they're all numbers, because tomorrow is the last day before the final day. So we'll tell you how things are going as we build up to our main coverage on Saturday, December 7th. We'll be on air, on ground, and online. starfm.com.gh. We'll be on GH1 television. We'll be on Starr 103.5 FM. This should be your one-stop shop. We will be carrying you along, and you see where it is headed. Last. By Monday, everybody will know their smooth test level before EC declares on Tuesday. So, Adam Kojo, thank you. Thank you very much. Someone is repeating my last. Thank you very much for joining me this morning. And tomorrow, we look forward to having you as well as we delve deeper into the numbers. So we've looked at the Greater Accra region, which is the researchers are telling us that it's not so much of a switch, it's not so much of a swing. And then we've looked at the Western and looked at the Central, at least for those three. We'll explore other elements going into the election as well tomorrow. Thank you very much for your company. Unfortunately, I couldn't pick you. In fact, you know what? I'll use 10 minutes to pick your call. Then the zone team comes in. The number to reach us on is 0552 880216. 0552 880216. Let me hear from you. Yesterday I did say that I would want to hear from you this morning, and I just have to honor my promise. The zone team have been kind enough to extend to me some 10 minutes, so let me use that to receive your calls. Hi there, name where you're calling us from?
Yeah, now good morning.
Good morning.